Hello, I'm Jeff, and welcome to the 10 Revolutions podcast, where we have conversations with the disruptors improving life on Earth. In today's episode, our host Mark is interviewing Tim Parkhouse, a former youth worker who recently founded Get Fed. Get Fed is a converted van that sells coffee, but it is more than that. It's also a vehicle supporting young people who have disconnected from the education system to have a second chance at life, and it serves to drive entrepreneurship in schools. Let's get into it.
Tim Parkhouse here from Get Fed Coffee. Welcome, Tim, to the podcast.
Thank you,
Really
Mark.
excited to have you on.
Yeah, I'm super excited. It's brilliant to be here. Thank you. Great meeting you, and to be invited here feels really special. So yeah, thank you very much.
And it's customary on this podcast, we usually start by talking about how we met, he says, sounding like a seasoned podcaster.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to the audience about how we met.
We first met in person at Oxford Trust, which was a gig with Get Fed. So I'd taken my coffee van down on a freezing cold but sunny morning, I think it was, and one of my young entrepreneurs was there, who's actually with us today, just observing the session today, just to kind of experience what podcasting is like. And you came down and supported us, had a coffee, and kind of got to see us in action with the coffee van and one of our young entrepreneurs trying out a gig in public. Yeah,
it was really good to sit in the flesh. And how we were first acquainted with each other as well is quite interesting, isn't it? Because I know you've do you remember?
No, what happened?
Okay, so it was, and I know you've spoken critically about AI previously. It was actually this tool called Bawdy AI, which connects, I think it says it connects founders, innovators, investors, and curious minds. I think that's the line for it.
Yeah.
I'm probably more in the curious minds camp.
Right.
But yeah, that's how we met originally. And it's quite interesting because we've had Rob Chapman on a previous episode. He's building something a little bit similar called Naya AI, which connects communities.
Yeah.
So it's more connecting communities, people on a personal level. But that was how we met.
Yeah, right.
The recommendation.
Yeah, I've had a few interactions with Bawdy, and he's recommended some people that I already know and are perfectly matched. And so I'm like, well, I can't give him too much stick for that because, they're great guys. But you're probably the best one that I didn't know already. And then he's recommended a few that were, it was a little bit hard to figure out why he'd recommended them. It was like, you can do better than that.
Yes.
You're infinitely intelligent, aren't you? So,
yes, and you've got 10,000 connections or something already. Right. It's probably grown since then, since the last saw. Yeah, no, it is interesting. And yeah, it was definitely a good recommendation. I think we have some common passions and interests, youth, underdogs in society, and of course coffee. I do love coffee, so it's great. So tell me, tell us a little bit about Get Fed. What is it, and where did the inspiration come from?
Get Fed is a social enterprise that's been running for about 3 years, and we're education focused. But the background, the context is me as a youth worker working for the local authority in youth justice. So I was working with young people who were getting in trouble, either very serious trouble or lots and lots of trouble, such that they end up in court. And it was my job to then figure out how to help them stay out of trouble, get on with their lives and be successful individuals. And it was in the context of a lot of cuts. So back in 2012, sort of the youth clubs closed. We didn't even have a youth club, a pool table across the whole county to kind of engage these young people who, had a lot of challenges. And a lot of them hadn't done well in education. I could see that. So they might be doing absolutely nothing with their time. And the drug dealers would then be very successful at hooking them up because they had opportunity to make cash, get a bit of reputation, and feel like they're doing something with their lives. And I think for kids, when there's not even any food in the cupboards, there are desperate choices sometimes to be made. And I looked around at what we could offer them, and it was basically come and have a chat with me in my office. Not even a podcast, just a chat in my office. And I thought, it's not enough. We need to offer these guys some skills and an opportunity to earn. So I one day looked at the queue and the park and ride in Oxford and saw all those people who had nice jobs and no opportunity to buy a fresh coffee while they were waiting for their bus. And I thought, we could put a little kiosk there and we could make a few £100 before breakfast. And then, that would work with our young people, I think. So I sort of got that as an idea, and that's what Get Fed is. It's basically a coffee van, train young people with their barista skills, give them a chance to learn about the business, and then when they work on the van, as long as it's outside of school hours, they earn 50% of the profits. So by the end of it, they've hopefully learned some skills, had an experience of work, but also had an experience of being part of a small business.
It's brilliant. I mean, it's a brilliant idea that
Thank you,
you're
mate.
doing.
Appreciate that.
And extremely generous, I think. I mean, share half the profits with them. I think it's brilliant. I mean, how many young people, just to describe sort of your coverage and reach at the moment in terms of, you work with a couple of schools, don't you?
Yeah, I've got 2 schools in the north of Oxfordshire, and I've got one or two young people out in the community. So it's not a big number of young people that we work with. The turnover is depends. Some young people we work with for a period of time. Some young people, I like to do at least 12 sessions because I want to be able to get to know young people, make sure they've got the skills, because a lot of it is repetitive. It's just practice with the coffee. If you want to get it right, you need to practice. And then obviously give them an opportunity to earn in the community as well, so that they kind of have a finale where they really demonstrate their skills and they come away with this feeling that, yeah, I can do this. Hopefully they really fall for the idea of running their own business one day or being entrepreneurial. So, I don't think I'm generous at all. They think I'm generous when that's the hook. They think like when we sell a £3 cup of coffee, they're going to get half of that. They think £1.50 in my pocket. And that's when we start to have those meaningful conversations about costs. So actually quite a lot of that is costs. Some of it, the visible costs that you can see, like the cup, the coffee, the milk.
Yeah.
And some of it, the really boring costs, like my wages and the insurance and the IT bill.
Van running costs, yeah.
All that kind of boring stuff. So they have to have that. They have to have those conversations because they actually ultimately want to know, what do they end up in their pocket.
Yeah. And I guess it's a lot more than just making coffee, isn't it? The skills that they're learning is, I mean, as you were saying, that a lot of them come from difficult backgrounds, difficult education, so they're learning how to interact with the public.
Yeah, they're all different. Some of them are like just cheeky, and they got all that charm and outgoing ability. And so for them, it's like, no, really need to focus on making good coffee, because it's not just good enough to just chat with your customers and upsell them something. And then, some young people have really missed out. If they've missed out on education, they've missed out on a huge amount of social opportunity and the skills that go with it. And it is a generation that have been quite isolated, and a lot of their socialising has been screen-based, which is a different set of skills, really. So, I really love having that opportunity for them to just dip into customer service and the sort of social aspects of sales and running a small business, because they can do it at their own pace, because I can do all of that for them, and they can just pick it up by osmosis and then choose their moment to get involved with the customers. And we have good experiences. Coffee is a nice place to be. It's not quite as good as maybe being at the beach on a sunny day, but it is people getting a treat that they're looking forward to. They're in their happy space when they're ordering their coffee and maybe a treat to go with it.
Yeah, I have observed that. Just some of the roasters in Oxford I've had some interactions with, and I think the coffee community, the consumers of coffee, people that roast coffee, brew coffee, I think there's definitely it's a nice community, isn't it? I think everybody wants to help each other.
Right. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. So it's the coffee community is great. The social enterprise community is great. Actually, the business community has been really supportive. And then we also cross into charitable and sort of local authority and local government type things. And, we do find we get a lot of love from, people all around us, actually. I think a lot of people can see the point in what we're trying to do, and they want to support. So it's, we've had a lot of love. Yeah.
Have you had any funding?
Yeah, from lots of different places. So I'm very scattergun with like what I apply for, and then it seems very random in terms of what we get. So some things I think sometimes I send off an application and I've done it and I'm so happy with it. I think it's absolutely nailed on, and then you either never hear anything back or it's a no. But you don't necessarily understand why it's a no. And then other times, the opposite, totally the opposite. So I haven't figured that out at all. But fortunately, we're not totally dependent on, we're not a charity model. We are a business model. As much as possible, we want to model for young people that we are a business that needs customers. We have to keep our customers happy. We have to keep inventing how to offer more to our customers to be successful. If we don't do that, we're gradually going to die out. So that's the reality of a lot of people today, and we want to reflect that for our young people.
So the funding has helped you sort of buy capital and things like that, presumably. But what you're saying is you need a model that's self-sustaining.
Yeah, I mean, we got 10 grand to buy the coffee van in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, the upside of being a social enterprise is you can accept help from all different places. But then when we're out and about, we are working with young people who have limited capacity. And so we're not going to turn over the amount of sales that Costa and Starbucks can do, nor do we really want to. So yeah, we just find what works for us, and forever. And I try and involve young people in those decisions. So when a school or some kind of business has asked us, can we come and do this? I talk to the young people about it. When it's a quiet moment on the van, we've been asked if we can go there. This is the travel. This is the kind of difficulty of it. But this is the upside. What do you think? And talk it through as so they're junior business partners.
So give me an example of someone whose life you really impacted. There must be hundreds, but can you think of one where you've particularly turned someone around?
I wouldn't say hundreds. We've definitely met with hundreds of young people, and we've definitely had an impact. But whether making those big changes, it's hard to know. I mean, our sort of OG who took to it brilliantly in school. We helped him.
OG, sorry.
Just our original kind of like legend. I'm not sure if OG's original gangster actually, but okay. I'm being a bit strict.
I just think own goal is all I can think
of. Own goal. He was having a hard time in school. From a big family, he was one of the youngest, and it was he just had an amazing work ethic. Really struggled to sit down for lessons, especially if he didn't respect the teacher or have a good relationship with the teacher, and only had one option, kind of in his head about what he was going to do after school. And but he absolutely took to the business, basically making coffees. He loved, and the banter. Very quick-witted, really sharp. Young man. He loved the banter, and he was always up for doing the gigs. So there was one gig we did on a rainy Saturday at a school fete, and I turned up at 12 because it was like an afternoon fete, and he was there already without a coat. In fact, he was just in a t-shirt, and I'm like, you're early and you haven't got a coat in the rain, right? And he's like, yeah, I've been here for an hour, I got the times wrong. But and then it was a rainy school fete, there was very little trade. He was just like, and at the end of it, he was just like, but Tim, we got the name out there. We got the name out there. Just the attitude was awesome. Straight from school, he went into I helped him find his first job. And then after a month, he changed into a hospitality job. And he's flying there. He's absolutely flying. He's doing amazing. His barista skills, his understanding of that business, supervising staff, and his commitment to that business is incredible. So he has really flown. And you can trace some of that back to his input from Get Fed. So that's been very cool to watch.
It must be incredibly rewarding for you.
Well, we stay in touch. Seeing him doing that well, and sort of still having those conversations about, he's only 17 still, so having those conversations about what he's learning, what he wants to do next, where he could go, is really, really fantastic.
I think it shows that there's potential in everyone, isn't it?
Right.
Whatever your background or upbringing or wherever you've been influenced.
Well, I mean, that is the excitement of working with teenagers, is because, a lot of people are like, how do you work with teenagers? They're like, you must be so patient and stuff like that. But it's the potential that I find super exciting. Like, the young person who's come today to observe the session, unbelievable potential, very, very exciting. Young person who's had a very, very difficult experience at school. I mean, really, really horrific, quite traumatizing, led to a lot of isolation. And but then, new paths have opened up, and now in hopefully with Get Fed, able to kind of explore new options and stuff like that. And that's what excites me as a youth worker, is you're working with young people, so kind of almost by definition as potential. But when you start to see new potential in the young person that you're working with, then it is super exciting. And you just want to, then your mind goes off in all different ways. It's like, how do we develop this potential? Now we're starting to see these kind of inspiration in a young entrepreneur. How do we help them to, meet new people, have new experiences, and start forging that path ahead, which is going to turn into something incredible that we can't really predict, but we just know it's going to be amazing.
And what's the age range? I mean, I think you have young people as young as 15, but I think they can only work for 2 hours at a time at that age.
Okay, so no, we have had young people as young as 12, 13.
Wow.
The difficulty for me, I don't recommend that for schools, for example, because I think if it works really, really well, there's still too long a gap for them to be able to actually realistically get employment outside of Get Fed.
Yeah.
So I prefer to work with the 14, 15s because they're just
Yeah.
coming to that stage where they're starting to see the end of school approaching. And also if they do go with their Get Fed experience to their local cafe, bar, pub, or event place, then they've got a chance of getting a job. So up to about, our eldest is probably 20-ish, but we would consider up to 25 when there's special needs, educational needs. So that's kind of our age range. There was a second part of that question. Was about, you said about 2 hours. Yeah, this is so because when we work on a Sunday, for example, you could be working with a 15-year-old like a day before their 16th birthday, and I've got some strapping young 15-year-olds who'd happily work an 8-hour shift on a Sunday, but they're restricted to 2 hours on a Sunday. It's those like kind of really massively out of date.
Oh, just on a Sunday?
Just on a Sunday. Doesn't account for a bank holiday. Doesn't account for even religious holidays. Just a Sunday, I think.
I think that's a war legacy, a Second World War legacy, isn't it?
It's
like
presumably when they
hours.
they wanted young people to be in church, probably. So they're very protective, and coming out of probably people having memories of kids being exploited in industry and there being very little health and safety and stuff. And now we've got, just buckets of health and safety and all these sort of protective factors, which I think are faintly ridiculous in the current climate, where you've got young people at home doing nothing with no food in the cupboards, and then drug dealers offering them, working through the night with horrific risk. So I think, we need to review those employment laws, and probably we need to review some of the laws around education as well, to kind of so that the 1/3 of young people who aren't doing well in education have some better options.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. I think I'm really interested to hear about your vision in terms of schools, how schools can become more entrepreneurial and provide more opportunities like this for young people. I mean, and also just on that point we were talking about, something you pointed out that I hadn't been aware of, that the national minimum wage for 16-year-olds is £7.55 an hour.
If you're 16 or above, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no minimum wage for under 16. So
Yeah.
while you're in school, that you could be paid anything at all.
Yeah, it's quite a disparity, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. So when we had those two lads working on that Sunday recently, they worked really, really hard. It was a great gig for us to be able to do. And they had a queue that was, couldn't see the end of the queue for like kind of 2.5, nearly 3 hours. So they just worked non-stop. We took over 800 quid. And they ended up with just about £70 each, and £20 tips each as well. So just working on a Sunday morning, they took away like £89 each, and that works out. Even without the tips, that works out as just over 4.5 times minimum wage.
Wow.
Partly because of those 2 hours. So because I'm paying them 50% of the profits, I can actually pay them whatever I want. But if I was paying them an hourly rate, I'd have to obviously pay them way less partly because of that 2 hour rule, and partly because the hourly wage is not great.
Yeah. But definitely incentive for them to see hard work pays off.
That's what I want. I want them to see that, because what they've done is they've invested up front. So realistically, they've looked at Get Fed and they've seen something that they like. So they've put their time and effort into it over a period of weeks or months sometimes without getting paid. So, okay, they're getting to miss some lessons in school, which they might hate. So, it's a bit more complicated. But I think, to show them that when you invest in upfront as an entrepreneur, there are potentially decent rewards down the line. I think that is like part of the essence of entrepreneurship. Is you have to back yourself up front. You've got to suffer a little bit to start with. You've got to do a lot for nothing, or maybe even for pain, and then with the hope that in the future you are building something that in the future is going to reward you in loads more ways than just an income.
Just a comment here. Mark thought OG meant own goal. Clearly not very down with the street language. On a more serious note, though, Original Gangster is a great concept for considering how everyone has their unique gift to give to the world. As Mark and Tim spoke about in this episode, there's potential in everyone when you invest in them. That young person, the OG that Tim supported, took to the business like a duck to water, quite literally, and is now thriving in their life. And I know from my own personal experience the massive value add that having a mentor or someone that can really invest in you at a personal level can have in your life and lead to your future success, and that ripple effect, the positive impact it can have on the world.
For sure. And share some of your own growing pains. So you bought the van. It doesn't always it doesn't work so well in the cold, does it? Certainly that morning was probably a classic example, and there must have been colder days. So what are some of the teething problems you've had? It was 3 years, is it now you've been going?
Yeah. So when I first had 10 grand to buy a tiny little tuk-tuk. So if you check on the website, you'll probably see it. It was a 50cc Piaggio Ape. So the cutest little bit of Italian chic. It's basically, it is a scooter with a coffee van on the back, which is hard to believe. But actually, if you look in the tiny little cab, it's a handlebars with 4-speed twist grip, just like a scooter. And it's got a little 2-stroke engine between the rear wheels. And then on the back, a little van sort of space that's got the coffee machine, the grinder, water tank, batteries and everything you need. So I used to trailer that places. So yeah, in the winter, to kind of in the morning, in the dark, reverse the little Piaggio up a steep slope onto my trailer so it then tip back like a tipping trailer, and then tie it down, drive to school, get it off the trailer, take it to where it was supposed to be, get rid of the car on the trailer, deliver like coffees all morning for students and staff, and then do that in reverse. Yeah, in the wet and the cold. I look back on that and I think, I must have been mad.
Long days, early starts, right?
Must have been mad. Yeah, but it was for the love, because when you get there and you're serving coffees, and your customers are happy and young people they've turned up for school. Some of my young people turn up for school because of Get Fed. And I got mum's messaging me saying he got out of bed an hour early today because it was Get Fed.
He was excited.
So she didn't have to fight that teenager out of bed because it was Get Fed. Little things like that.
The power of purpose, I think, isn't it? It's a purpose for getting up, and it's unfortunately school on its own is not doing that for young people, is it? So.
For some it is. Some people get a lot of purpose out of academic stuff, I'm sure. They love that. And but for quite a few, that's not the case.
Young people.
I do think purpose is a big deal for this generation coming through. I think they see a lot of that on their feeds and stuff, about people who are living with purpose and are selling purpose basically. And I think it's hard for them sometimes to make meaningful connections between what they're seeing on screen and what they're expected to do. Because I think a lot of the time we infantilize kids, we just give them a structure and tell them just go do that, do as you're told sort of thing. And I think they get to sort of 13 and 14 and they're starting to think for themselves naturally, right? Biologically, that's their stage they're at.
More so than, they grow up so much faster today. They have access to...
In a way, yeah. In a way, they do.
World. They have a window into the outside world, which is wider than it's ever been.
Yeah, right. But they don't get some of the experiences that I had when I was, I was out every day with my mates, and I was as soon as I was 16, I was on a moped, and I was out exploring. I didn't have a curfew, and it was very different, very different. So I didn't have the internet to kind of feed me tons of stuff about what was possible. But in terms of like kind of real experience, it was it was very immediate.
Immediate feedback.
And I had a lot of freedom, and I learned a lot about risk taking and stuff, which I think young people today aren't having that opportunity to learn about that in the same way. So I think, and that's where a lot of the anxiety comes from.
They're observers, but they're not participators to a large extent.
Yeah. So the things I used to worry about was like, obviously, riding a motorbike and whether this girl liked me or not, and whether if I bothered to go and call for my mate, whether he'd actually be in or whether he'd already gone out. That was the things that I worried about. Very immediate kind of risks. And these guys are faced with these risks like, climate change and AI and, the economy sucking and there not being any jobs and not being able to buy a house and that stuff. They have no control over that. So it makes us all anxious thinking about that kind of stuff. You want to be worried about the risk about where you have a little bit of control That's the kind of risk that you need to be involved with, I think.
Yeah, and they are all genuine things to be concerned about, but I think we just need to give them things to be optimistic about as well. I think there's plenty of things, but having, as you say, having a purpose, is a great reason for getting up in the morning.
Totally, yeah.
So, in terms of schools, so what can schools do to be more innovative? What's your vision for education and how schools can support that entrepreneurial culture?
Yeah, it's something that like absolutely I'm totally like spinning out about it at the moment, because I suppose because I go to schools and I see them really struggling, and I know they pay for me to go there and to work with some of their challenged students and stuff. But I can see, and I'm thinking, how do we offer the best value? And I look at some of the schools and I speak to some of the people who are responsible for finance in schools, and I know how they're suffering, and I project forwards and just think, what can we do? So for me, the entrepreneurial angle is something I've totally fallen for. I have the ability to imagine schools being entrepreneurial, like ecosystems, where the youngsters are involved in practical and creative things that do relate to an actual service provided to the community that does generate revenue. So you can imagine kids who are not particularly academic growing vegetables at one of the schools I go to, and then turning those vegetables into soup or pasta sauce, and then having a pasta van where they create pizzas, pizza van, serve pizzas in the school, and then when the school is not open, evenings, weekends, holidays, take that pizza van and go and do events and generate revenue and profit and income for those kids who are working on it. Welcome in the 20-somethings around in the community who have got startup ideas, whether they want to be physical trainers or therapists or grow stuff or do events. So they come into the school and they serve the needs of the community, because basically every secondary school is pretty much where people live, and we know that the population is suffering with isolation, poverty, and health issues.
Yeah.
So I think that the schools can be a massive part of the solutions that we need, and I think it would help schools to probably balance the books. Now, it's quite countercultural, so there's a lot of stuff that needs to change. But in a way, that's also kind of the thing that gets me out of bed as well. It's like, if it was just easy, then, I probably wouldn't be here chatting to you about it, would I?
Of course. Yeah, of course. It's a huge thing. And we touched on it in the last episode, actually. We sort of touched on education and, the education system reacting to the modern world, particularly like things like AI and ChatGPT that kids are getting their hands on more and more. And, there was a bit of mirth really about can it respond quickly enough? How do you think it will change, or what will be the catalyst for change, other than all the people like yourself doing this amazing work and hopefully giving them opening their eyes a bit to the possibilities?
I think, I don't know whether there's going to be the catalyst for change that we kind of need. So, I do feel quite a bit of urgency about this, because I sense the kind of inertia all around, that people, like I'm listening to the radio and current affairs, and I hear all the time people saying, we just need more what they say is, there's a crisis in this area and we just need more funding to sort it out. And I'm like thinking to myself, there is no more funding, people. The country is looking at, really struggling on that, less funding going forwards and greater needs. That's the reality of our situation. So we need quite a stark change in culture, so that people stop, are weaned off this like thing that we've had for 15, 20 years, where public services do tend to come to the rescue. And now we're in a prolonged period where actually they're not going to come to the rescue, and we have to create our own solutions. And so we kind of have to, we have to look backwards and forwards. So I think, there was a time sort of 30, 40 years ago when we were more resilient in terms of fixing, mending, growing, creating our own stuff. And then there's a time that's just upon us now when there's more stuff can be automated to kind of make life easier for us with the right application of technology. And if we do if there is the right kind of catalysts around, then we can create that kind of nexus of like what we know that works from history, bin all the crap that we've taken on board in the last few years that have brought us to our knees, and welcome in like harnessed new technologies that coordinate all this great activity, which is going to make people, reconnect and find their purpose and want to be part of the community. Because I think working with teenagers, you often, again, you hear about, well, they need to be told this or they need this. I think if you tell a teenager what they need, you've pretty much blown it straight away, right? What teenagers need is they need something they can't resist, which is almost invariably other teenagers, a bit of risk and a bit of reward. So, why aren't schools holding events every 6 weeks where there's live music and a DJ and great food and something good to drink that's not alcoholic, and all their mates are going to be there? Because you will not be able to keep them away. It doesn't matter what the gaming thing's going on or what's on the screen. If there's a banging event just down the road that they can afford, then they'll all be there. But we're just not offering them that. Yeah. We've just kind of risk assessed them out of that option.
And as you say, the connection with the community, as you mentioned, isolation, I think boredom's another thing, isn't it? You talked about youth clubs closing down from when you were a youth worker. So schools being like a hub in the community where actually there can be events for schools, but there can be events for other people in the community.
Yeah. Yeah, they get the whole community involved, no question, yeah. So that's, these are the things that like kind of I'm just spinning around at the moment, just thinking, how do we make this work? It's great to be able to have this chat. It's absolutely lovely, yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll get some ears on it, and it might be the catalyst for some small level of change. You talked about technology and sort of how technology can be an enabler. How do you see that working in practice then?
I think my son sent me a little like meme or something, or whatever it was, about the AI doom loop in education, where I know I've got a friend who's a lecturer at university, and he's been saying this for a couple of years, and I think teachers are saying the same. It's like, and my daughter, who's just gone to university, is so disillusioned with the fact that she's not using AI and getting top grades, and everyone else is basically saying, I just fall asleep in the lectures because they just know that AI is going to get them out of the hole. So I think that the good side is that you can learn what you need to learn from a computer potentially very, very quickly compared to sitting in lessons with a lecturer. It's not going to feel the same, but there's an efficiency to it. And I spent a little bit of time at Oxford University recently, a few times. The colleges have been lovely to us, providing us with some opportunities for young people and gigs and stuff. And you see this sort of cross between like a 5-star hotel and a palace. And you just think, oh, they're so privileged and amazing. And you go 20 miles down the road to a school in Oxfordshire and it's crumbling. It's literally falling to pieces. And you're just like, how can that be true in education in the same county that's world famous for education? And then you realise, and I analyse what happens at the colleges, and you see that there's layers and layers of entrepreneurial activity. There's so many different organisations and people kind of providing services, and it's open 24/7. It's open evenings, weekends, and through the holidays. And the schools are mainly closed. They're open for 5 hours a day, plus a little bit for a few extra activities, and then they're mainly closed through the holidays and the weekends. So the Oxford University is sweating its assets. So yes, they start from an amazing privileged place, but they are sweating their assets, and they are playing brilliantly to a global marketplace. But the schools, they're local. They've got an incredible local marketplace of people and needs all around them, but they're not sweating their assets. They're closing their doors as soon as they possibly can, and they're just closed a lot of the year. Like 2/3 of the year, they're closed.
Yeah.
So there is that opportunity to probably use the efficiency of AI to condense the academic learning into a smaller space of time, so that people can do what they also want to do, or what might also be their purpose, which could be growing vegetables, producing incredible food, putting on events, going to the gym, having a sauna, massage, chatting with their mates, hanging out, all that kind of stuff that the schools could be offering And why wouldn't they?
The school gate becomes a more welcoming place.
Well, have you noticed how the schools are looking more like prisons all the time? The schools that I go to increasingly are putting up giant kind of wire fences with electronics and stuff, so you know, one in, one out kind of thing. And I always wonder whether it's designed to keep the students in or keep the baddies out, or is it both, or what is it? It's just the messaging is probably different to what I'm hoping for, how schools could evolve.
Yeah, and of course safety is of paramount importance, but I think that can be done in a way that doesn't make the front of the school look so oppressive.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because of course there's, you know, the gates and the electronics and the, you know, that safeguarding stuff is of course a response to some horrific things that have happened. But yeah, it's like, is there a way to ensure people's safety through more human and organic ways of, like, just being accountable to one another and making sure that everyone at almost every stage is connected in a way that is safe and prosperous? I guess rather than having these sort of mechanical and very binary ways of doing security.
Just going back to what you were saying about the universities then, so how do you think these entrepreneurship within the colleges and the universities, how can they permeate that down to the schools?
Well, I'm not sure if they will. I think it might be down to sort of like schools, and you know, I think I'm having conversations. So we got really lucky last year, and we were invited to the Festival of Education, or we asked, can we come and serve coffee at the Festival of Education? And they not only said yes to us, but they put us in the VIP area. So we had young people who struggle in the classroom, serving coffees and lovely drinks to 200 VIPs who are delivering presentations at the Festival of Education. So that from, you know, around the country and around the world, 200 of the most charismatic, cool and influential people in education were coming to us for coffee and finding out a little bit about Get Fed. And so, you know, we got some lovely friends from that, and worked out that actually, you know, when I suggest to national players in education that, you know, would it be cool if schools were more entrepreneurial, there's no pushback. There's no pushback at all. It's like, absolutely love what you're doing, Tim, and like, how can we help, sort of thing. So we are looking again at how do we influence schools who are under huge pressure financially and in terms of like Ofsted and you know, exams and output and stuff. How do we like create a pilot which could be measurable, which could then provide evidence that then could then persuade legislators to consider again how to, you know, reorganise and support schools being more entrepreneurial, more inclusive and more serving of their communities.
Is that where you think it lies, is with the legislator? It sounds like there's a lot of awareness, a lot of intent from within the school and the education community. Is that where you think it's getting stuck?
I think that's where the fight is, and because I think, you know, there's a lot of vested interest, isn't there? You know, like I went to, when I was working for the local authority, I was the guy who'd be like, why do we spend 3 hours on a laptop writing about the potential risks of this child instead of actually spending time with the child to help them pick up some skills and feel positive about their life, so they're less likely to go and whack somebody? And I said to them, you know, why don't we, for example, have a coffee van? You know, and use the fact that we're the local authorities to kind of basically bend the rules. You know, so these kids that aren't in school, let's teach them to sell some frothy coffee, teach them about business and get them closer to employment. And I used to get the pat on the head, and I was like, Tim, we love your passion, we love your enthusiasm. You're probably right, but it's, you know, but not now, sort of thing. And like a lot of those guys, especially as you go up the seniority, in local authorities and in government, they're on a good ticket. They're paid very highly to kind of basically keep things the same. You know, there's a lot of, you know, inertia built into the system, and we've also created systems that are so damn complicated nobody can understand them, nobody can unpick them, and then we've also cut costs so that the middle managers who might have had a chance of understanding them have all gone. A lot of them have disappeared. So in the Youth Justice Board, for example, when I started sort of 15, 20 years ago, their Youth Justice Board, I think, was a really significant mechanism, and they implemented a lot of stuff. After 2012 and the cuts that came from the financial crash, there's like 4 people there, and they're responsible for youth offending services across the country. And when they need to make changes, there just isn't the resources to make any changes. So we just carry on doing stuff the way we've always done it.
Yeah. How do you think we break that inertia then? That's a question, I know.
Yeah, I think the pragmatic way to do it is what I've just said, which is like you have to prove that something works in a way that is almost impossible to refute. So if the outcomes are great and it saves money or maybe generates money, then and you get somebody independent to measure that, then you've got something that you can go to anyone with and say, look, here's our evidence. So that's the boring way of doing it. And the other way, the more creative way to do it is just to go ahead and do it and just see who follows.
Interesting. So where else do you think schools can improve in terms of providing a better space for young people, aside from entrepreneurship? Are there other ideas that you have?
Yeah, I think the schools that I'm working with are, they are quite open, and one in particular we're having great conversations with them, and they are already entrepreneurial, and they are, they're absolutely open to what they can do. I think everyone's aware there's great need, some of it's not being met, and there's great opportunity, but it is, it's like with, ideas in a way are kind of the easy bit. It's the implementation. So it's like how do you take, schools have great assets, and we've already said we want them to sweat those assets for the benefit of the community and all of their learners, including the non-academic ones. But actually, in reality, what's your first few steps to get there? So we're looking at, in a school, for example, what if we replicated Get Fed, but we did it with pizza? So we had a pizza unit in there and a coffee unit in there. So young people are learning their barista skills, they're learning their chefing skills, and they're serving and selling coffee and pizza in school hours. And then when it's not school hours, they've got the opportunity to take those units to events and to marketplaces and to generate revenue there. Once you've done coffee and pizza, you can do any number of other things. But also, if you could grow your own vegetables and some fruit and stuff and start creating produce in school, then that you've got a great spin-off there. That could potentially, I love the idea of having a sourdough bakery in, just like some this stuff that's like died out. I'm a big fan of a good loaf of bread, and I can't find one in a supermarket anymore. So on a Saturday morning, I jump on my bike and I ride to a bakery where I know the baker's been there since 5 a.m, and the bread is going to be warm, crusty, and amazing. It costs me 4 times as much as a loaf from the supermarket, but it's 10 or 20 times as good. Now, what if a school had funding to kind of create a bakery? So you got young people learning those skills, going out in the community, and well, the teachers will all that. Most of them will have a loaf. Then you can use those loaves to feed some of the kids that really need like proper food, not like ultra processed food. You can take some of your vegetables that you've grown, make a soup or some sandwich filling that goes in your sandwiches. It's easy for me to say. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of people to be involved, and then a bit of AI to coordinate the whole thing. But I think if we don't start experimenting, then what are we looking at?
Yeah, I think food and nutrition are so core, so key in it. The power of having decent nutrition. I guess there's a lot of kids going to school in the mornings with an empty stomach, and cost.
Yeah, a lot of kids don't are not eating breakfast. Don't feel like eating breakfast. A lot of the young people I work with aren't sleeping properly because their social time, real good social time is basically through the night when they're online gaming and chatting with people, so they are struggling for a number of reasons to kind of like function in the mornings and through the day. So it would be quite good to offer them, options that are that they find very hard to resist, that like bring that kind of good nutrition, sort of reset the body clock a little bit within reason, because they're teenagers. They've got to experiment. They've got to learn these things for themselves. But yeah, I'd love to see schools just experimenting.
And what's next for you? What's...
Yeah, I would love to help schools to do this, and I think, you know, to be like taken seriously, we do need to get somebody to measure what we're doing. So in which case we have to be quite methodical. So I need to talk to my directors about, you know, how do we do that? How do we make this work? And use those national kind of influential friends that we've got to kind of like help create a process that can be taken seriously and can be measured. We could, I think, you know, another coffee van could work really well in Oxford. I love the idea of an electric coffee van in Oxford. I think that'd be very Oxford. Serving 4 or 5 schools in Oxford would be amazing. There's also so much potential in Oxford for, you know, basically events and things with the university, and where we've had a good start and stuff like that. So yeah, that would be an interesting thing. I would love a co-founder, to be honest. You know, I'm loving it. I'm having an absolute blast running Get Fed. I have loads of lovely support. I meet incredible people, as you know. But it would be cool to have somebody who's like willing to, who wants to see this move and has got a bit of a kind of crazy passion that I've got for it, and is willing to take a risk, because I think it would be fun to try working with a co-founder, maybe into Oxford area or Milton Keynes or Aylesbury. There's need all around.
Let's put it out there. Call for a co-founder. Tim's looking for a co-founder.
Well, if anyone's sat through this podcast until now and they're still listening and still up for this conversation, then is something telling them that they should be getting in touch and joining the movement somehow. Because maybe that's the case.
100%, yeah. I mean, it's going to be a few weeks before this is out. But yeah, I mean, I found, you know, from my own business, my own coaching business, I found that actually I spend a lot of time, you know, that's something that I was looking for, and I'm potentially close to securing 1 or 2 partnerships.
Awesome.
I don't want to jinx it.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Really exciting, right?
It's
when
really
you connect with people and you have that kind of level of a relationship where it's possible that you could then end up working together and kind of growing something cool. That must be very exciting. So yeah. I think I want to be open to that. I want to be open to that. I think it's I've been doing it for 3 and a bit years on my own. So yeah, I'm probably I could be a bit of a nightmare to work with, but because I do it the way I do it. But I think also it should be open to kind of like new, fresh input.
Yeah, I think it's just it's giving you that reach, but it's also the psychological side. Someone I met at an event, he told me about a time where they were pitching for some funding. So they're pitching to some VCs, and the presentation, somehow it just tanked, and they didn't get the funding.
Right.
And so there was 2 of them. One of them went home and sort of drowned his sorrows and didn't get up till like midday the next day. The other one went home and just spent the night just redoing the presentation deck and just kind of learning from all the mistakes and jumping on it quickly. So they were ready, and obviously they got funding at the next round. So it just kind of shows you, like, it sounds like you must have tremendous resilience and motivation to do this, but there's days, right, where you must lack a bit of motivation. You need someone else to lift you.
Yeah.
Very hard on your own, right?
Yeah. Well, this morning was like a grim February morning, right? Just grey and wet and a bit cold. So absolutely lovely to have a podcast to come and do, you know. But in terms of like working from home and having to figure out, you know, what is my priority now, that I've kind of learned to accept that that's just the hardest bit of the job. It's just the hardest bit of the role. And so when you're faced with the hardest bit of anything, it is okay to fail. You know, it is okay to have a day when you're just not up to do the hardest bit of the job. So, you know, sometimes it's quite nice to have a coffee van to go and clean, because it's not a fun thing. It's not kind of inspiring. It doesn't like kind of fill me with purpose or anything, but it does mean that I'm doing something with my time and not just feeling like a complete loser because I can't do the hardest bit of the business on that particular day.
Really wanted to highlight that point there, that when you invest up front as an entrepreneur, there are rewards down the line, but you have to back yourself up front. You have to suffer a lot, do a lot for nothing, or for pain to build something that will reward you in the future. Mark and I at the 10 Revolutions podcast, we've both experienced that. We can really relate to it as founders. There can be a lot of suffering and self-doubt, but you have to keep following that North Star. And like Tim shared, he cleans his van on the days when he doesn't feel motivated. It's fine to have a day off. Don't beat yourself up too much. The important thing is forward progress and remembering the positive impact that you're going to have on the world in the long term.
Yeah. Well, LinkedIn is good. I mean, I want to know your secret. How do you get so many? I post something on LinkedIn. If I get 5 likes and a couple of comments, I'm happy. Right. You've got hundreds of people following you, so that's got to be a good.
No, that's not my perception that I'm successful on LinkedIn. I write dodgy poems and post them on LinkedIn. I do. I find LinkedIn can be really boring. And so I think that hooks into like kind of me as like a naughty boy, the naughty boy bit of me, that I just want to be a bit provocative and do something a bit different. Like I'm not smashing sales figures ever, and I'm not usually in a glamorous environment. I'm usually in a schoolyard, often on a grey day. So I'm that oppositional guy. I just want to post something on LinkedIn that's not bloody boring and about my sales smashes in the last month.
I'm with you on that, and I think we can make the platform a bit more.
Okay.
How do I say? A bit more fun, a bit more.
It's not that hard, right? It's not hard to make LinkedIn more fun, exactly. A little edgier. So if I can't make it more fun and more edgy, then I should give up.
No one got anywhere by being middle of the road. This is kind of the view I take. And if you put something out there which is a bit edgy, a bit fun, it's a bit like dividing a deck of cards. You might lose half the people, but the people in the cut of the cards that are with you, they're more with you.
Yeah.
You're building a tribe of loyal followers, and I really think there's something in that.
Yeah, I agree totally.
So many people putting content out there that if you've got something, and yours definitely is unique, and
it's not AI, my content.
No, and I will never fall into that trap of using bots to write content for me.
No, fair play, same.
Fantastic. Anything else we should have spoken about that we didn't, that you want to share?
Something did cross my mind, but no, it's been absolutely lovely. That's probably just like gone. So
that's all right. We can talk again. It won't be the last conversation, Tim. So
thank you, Mark. Sure. Bless you, man. Thank you so much for this. It's been awesome.
As I say, I am totally inspired by what you're doing, and I'll be following you closely. And good luck with the business, and good luck finding a co-founder. It's been wonderful talking.
It has been wonderful. Bless. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. And if there is a co-founder out there or anyone who's just interested in anything that we've been chatting about, then please stay in touch, because we have got a lovely community of people who kind of follow us and appreciate what we do. So diverse and interesting, like our little kind of galaxy of stars around us. So we're always happy to have new people, checking us out and getting in touch.
And where can people follow you? What's your...
So I do a fair amount on Facebook and LinkedIn. I do a little bit on Insta. There's the website, www.getfed.org.uk. They can email me through that. Please feel free to be in touch.
Yeah, www.getfed.org.uk.
That's the one.
Perfect. That's the one. Yeah. Start there, and I guess they'll find. Yeah. They'll connect with you through that route.
Yeah, if they want. Yeah. Or just look up, hopefully you'll find Get Fed
just
Coffee
Google
on
Get Fed,
Facebook.
You seem to have good rankings on Google, so that's good as well.
Well, all so accidental.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the 10 Revolutions podcast. Particular thanks to Ollie and Stan and the team at Cowley Road Studios. At the 10 Revolutions, we're creating a movement, supporting people who don't necessarily get a lot of coverage. There are good news stories in the world, and we're here to help promote the people who are writing those stories. One of the things we've noticed through these conversations is that when humans want to make a positive impact on the world, they can't do it on their own. Please join our movement via Patreon to support future content and to engage with the community, including the podcast guests. The details are in the show notes. And a final ask from us. Please share this episode with 5 people that you think would be positively impacted by it. Thank you for helping us to grow the movement.